Evening, colleagues. Would you please stand, rise for the procession? Good evening. Please remain standing for the national anthem. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Away, my second. That sounds like it. To our rector, Prof. Balfour, our Deputy Vice Chancellor, Prof. Madiba, our Registrar, Prof. Lotin Misra, Deputy Registrar is somewhere at the back, Dr. Sheikji, our honorable guest, Prof. Quentin Williams, our colleagues, students, family, friends, good evening. I'm not going to welcome you. Someone else is going to do that. Today marks a very important milestone in the academic journey of Professor Quentin Williams, his inaugural lecture. Now, some of you might wonder, doesn't he lecture every day? Why is this one so special? The truth is that academics are often misunderstood. I usually introduce myself as a linguist, and the next question would usually be, so how many languages do you speak? And my answer to that is usually 0, to which then people would ask, how do you say 0 when you are a linguist? Then I explain, so that's what he's going to do today. In the same way, Prof. Williams' inaugural lecture is not simply a lecture. It's a prestigious tradition in academics where a newly appointed full professor presents his scholarship to the wider community. So it is a celebration of his achievement in the academic space, but it's also a way of showcasing his knowledge and his contribution to scholarship. Prof. Williams, I'm not going to talk about his multiple hats that he wears. There's someone who's going to introduce him. But I'm hoping that he will say something about hip-hop tonight, and he'll say something about Afrikaaps, and talk about his latest publication, I'm hoping. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Manto Mutinyane, and I'm the Deputy Dean of Learning and Teaching in the Faculty of Arts and Humanities, and I am honored to serve as your program director this evening. So without wasting any much time, I would like to invite our Rector and Vice Chancellor, Prof. Robert Balfour, to the stage to deliver the official welcome. Please join me in giving him a round warm welcome.
Thank you very much, Prof. Mantua, as our program director, and a very, very good evening to everybody here, our students as well as our colleagues, guests, family members of Prof. Quentin. Thank you so much for making the evening possible for us to celebrate with our colleagues. Welcome also to the university to those who are not members of our university staff or family members. I want to acknowledge especially our deans, Prof. Muller, the Faculty of Humanities Dean, as well as the Deputy Deans gathered present, and our DVC, Prof. Matete, our Registrar, Dr. Nita, and all members of the academic and professional staff, as well as our students. It's a special time. And on this special occasion, Prof. Williams and all of those who have supported him along the way, especially family, friends, and loved ones who have joined us for this special time tonight. Let's celebrate it together and really enjoy the culmination of our colleagues' academic career and what it signifies for the University of the Western Cape. This is one of the most cherished traditions of our institution and indeed of academic life, the inaugural lecture. There's much debate in the world as to which university historically, or which countries historically have begun the tradition of the inaugural. Some say that began in Africa in the north. Some say it began in south of Europe. There are many versions of this, but what is quite clear is that a rite of passage as a scholar marks a significant milestone in terms of academic development. It would be tempting to think of it as the end of a journey, but in many ways this is really the recognition of a significant part of the journey. And in as much as we say thank you for what has been in the past, culminating in Prof. Williams's career tonight, we also say thank you for what is to come. So all the students who are gathered here, Prof. Williams's present and past students, are part of the thank you for the past and the contribution to scholarship. But in recognizing this achievement this evening, we also want to say, Prof. Williams, thank you for what is to come. Thank you for the many generations of academics and postgraduate students who we will still welcome under your supervision to be part of the tradition of what it means to be a professor at the University of the Western Cape. We also want to extend a warm welcome to Emeritus Professor Christopher Stroud. Prof. Chris, let me just see, where are you in the room? Might be online, might be online. But I know that Prof. Williams would like very much to have this inaugural dedicated to the impact that Professor Stroud has made on his life. He served not only as PhD supervisor, but also as mentor to our colleague, and he was also the founding director for the Center for Multilingualism and Diversities Research. We are honoring a scholar who has built an exceptional academic career to advance an entire field within our institution and beyond. And when I saw this inaugural lecture coming up as part of the series, being an applied linguist myself, I thought I must come this evening and come along and listen. And I'm really delighted to share the moment with you. Prof. Williams is recognized internationally for his work in sociolinguistics, multilingualism, and linguistic citizenship. His research offers clear insights into how language, identity, and power intersect in a post-apartheid South Africa and continue to influence how we interact in urban spaces, how cultural performance comes to be embodied, and the everyday language practices of marginalized communities, how these should be and should properly be also the substance of our scholarship, the focus of our scholarship. His arguments are illustrated with recent work on the status, prestige, and intellectualization of Kaaps, also known as Afrikaaps, and its speakers. And the title of his lecture this evening, Thinking Multilingualism for the Future of Historically Marginalized Speakers, invites us all to reflect on how scholarship can meaningfully engage with the social realities of our time. Professor Williams asks us to imagine new ways of speaking, writing, and listening, ways that honor knowledge and creativity embedded in South Africa's multilingual realities, but which should have a proper focus at a university such as this. And in recognizing you tonight, Prof. Quentin, we acknowledge that proper focus which you bring to us in bringing the languages of our communities and the languages of our institution together as a place of belonging. Your contributions to the university through the discipline, but also the wider public sphere, are both substantial and inspiring. It's the reason why we think of intellectual work as belonging in the public domain, not only in the domain of the classroom, but in our everyday media, in our everyday discourse as South African citizens. And we look to academics such as Prof. Williams to be the public intellectual figure in important linguistic debates about the significance of varieties of languages in our environments and the deep histories that have produced these and continue to shape them in our spaces. We are proud, Prof, to count you among UWC's full professors, and we so look forward to your lecture this evening with great anticipation. With those few words of welcome, I now invite the Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Humanities, Prof. Muller, to formally introduce our speaker to us. Thank you.
Greetings to everyone who is here today, especially those who are guests to the UWC campus. So most of you who have gathered here this evening for Quentin Williams's inaugural lecture, in one way or the other, know him. So you know that Quentin Williams is the director of the Center for Multilingualism and Diversities Research, a very active center housed in our faculty. You also know that Quentin Williams is now a full professor in the linguistics department with a specialization in sociolinguistics. You may not know that in 2019, Quentin Williams received a C1 NRF rating on first application, and this was for a scholar under 40 years of age. C1 ratings are awarded only to established researchers with a sustained record of high quality, recent research output and impact that has been recognized by peers. In 2024, Professor Williams won the Pansel Multilingualism Award, and he was a winner in the category of language activism. Quentin Williams has been the recipient of institutional and major national and international grant funding for projects like making space for Kaaps or Afrikaaps in higher education, investigating the intellectualization of a historically marginalized language through terminology and bilingual learning materials development at the University of the Western Cape. He's also received project funding for the Heal the Hood project, also for multilingualism, linguistic citizenship and vulnerability, a comparative focus on South Africa and Brazil, also for youth multilingualism, an interactional study of discourses of disability and vulnerability. This one was a multi-faculty, cross-institutional and international project involving Ghent University in Belgium. So funding for projects like these create research powerhouses in the faculty, but they also create opportunities for postgraduate students from our communities who might not be able to afford further study. Quentin Williams is also the author of the 2017 monograph, Remix Multilingualism, Ethnography, Hip-Hop, and the Performance of Marginalized Voice, published by the very prestigious Bloomsbury Press in London. So not only is Quentin a scholar of hip-hop, I discovered that he also composes hip-hop lyrics and performs hip-hop music himself. So I'm hoping that as part of this lecture, he's going to give us a bit of a performance. I'll be disappointed if you don't. He's also edited or co-edited too many edited volumes and edited too many journal special issues for me to name. And his list of articles and book chapters really is longer than my arm. I'm not even going to go to his public lectures, keynotes, and plenaries. There are just simply way too many of them. But one publication that I feel I must mention is his role in the development of the trilingual dictionary of Kaaps, a standout achievement for Prof. Williams, the CMDR, and for UWC. Quentin Williams is also an editorial board member of a range of prestigious journals and is an officer in a large number of professional organizations, attesting his standing and his service to the academic community. The list of boards and organizations is long, but I feel obliged to mention that Prof. Williams is an editorial board member and co-founder of Awe, Journal for Minoritized Languages. And from 2024 to the present, he's been the chairperson and actually the founder of the Society for the Advancement Fund Kaaps. He's also a member of the Observatory on Race and Skin Color Relations in Language Education. He's an editorial board member of the journal Contemporary African Linguistics, and he's also an editorial board member of Oxford Studies in Language and Race. That is an Oxford University Press series. So I mentioned Awe, Journal for Minoritized Languages, and Society for the Advancement Fund Kaaps, to show that I have come a long way. So, Quentin, when I was at high school, I was the girl they called Lady Di, and it was not intended as a compliment. It was also said that I spoke for England, and I used to be referred to in the corridors as Sturvy. At that time, I didn't know what Sturvy meant, or it might have blown my self-esteem forever, okay? But today, thanks to resources like the Afrikaaps dictionary, I know what Sturvy is, and I know that because I can say Awe and society for the advancement that I'm no longer scurvy. And Quentin, after your inaugural lecture, you're going to give me the Afrikaaps term that best describes me now. In other words, the word that is the opposite of scurvy, okay? So far, I've told you about Quentin Williams. I've given you information that you could easily find on Google yourself. But now I want to tell you something only those who know Quentin really well are aware of. So Quentin, in addition to all of his other talents, is an organist. He used to steal with his eyes from the church organist, Mr. Richard Kipperdoe, who used to play Bach preludes and fugues. When Richard Kipperdoe noticed his curiosity, he taught him to play. It usually takes 5 years to master the organ, but Quentin did it in less than 2 since he was so dedicated to practicing. With his current commitments to academia, he says to me that he practices much less, but it's out there now. Professor Quentin Williams also plays the organ. So Quentin has gone a very, very long way from being a Kaalfoot Laiti van die Bishop Lavis to being the kind of academic and scholar we all aspire to be. Prof. Williams's work straddles the local, the national, and the international, bringing a unique energy and dynamism to the study of sociolinguistics and giving recognition to the language and culture of his globally connected community. Prof. Williams, I'm truly honored to be able to call you my colleague, and I wish you every success in your standing as full professor. Your success will be the success of our faculty, and I look forward to your lecture this evening. Thank you.
This is very confronting, but I'm very grateful that all of you took time out of your schedule to attend this lecture. Thank you, Rector, for the introduction, the kind introduction and the overview of this lecture and the importance of it. Also, Dean, thank you very much, and all faculty members involved in the organizing of the event. Before I start, I want to also acknowledge Ambassador Ruby Marks. She comes from Bishop Lavis too, not die Berge, but around the corner. But also my faith leader, Bishop Bradley Adonis. Thank you very much for attending tonight. I think for me, thinking about multilingualism and thinking about language and how we should think about it, how we should connect it to persons, people who speak, really starts with my own journey. When I was, a Kaalfoot Laiti, because I said at the beginning it's a Kaalfoot Laiti van die Lavis. And when you enter in academia, you sound strange because it's not quite what they want you to sound like. So when you see this Laiti, in his Christmas klere. Now, I'm not the small one in front, my mother will tell you. I'm the one in the red clothes. I picked up a bit of weight, too much sugar at that age. But I think if you grow up in Bishop Lavis, you grow up for the first 6 years expanding your linguistic repertoire, and that's the languages and styles and accents that you are socialized into. It's usually first Kaaps, because that's what your mother speaks. That's what your father speaks. Then it's English, and then it's a little bit of what we call Sabella, the number gang's language. You can't escape it because it's around you, but that defines you. And for a very long time, when I entered into academia, I tried to think very carefully about what those speakers, especially from Bishop Blavers, do with their languages. Now, of course, when I was that lighty there, I didn't think about standing here. But that's me with my cousins at the back in blue, and my second oldest brother in front of me, Mario Williams. When I sort of came from high school, I didn't go to UWC or to university directly. I went to go work in ShopRite, offloading trailers. But I studied law part-time, and to this day I still listen to law podcasts, analyzing court cases. So I have a love for law, my second love. But when I came to university, for me, I think it was very important when I did postgraduate studies. Christopher Stroud, who the rector mentioned, made a significant impact because I was about to leave for UCT. I got accepted by UCT, and it was in December to go do a master's. And then the dean there, back then, Stanley Ridge, said, "No, don't go. A professor is going to come from overseas. You should stay." And I did. But this is the cover of my PhD research, and here already I started thinking about multilingualism and how to define multilingualism. And I focused on the practice of hip-hop culture in Kuils River and Chisanyama places, braai places like Mzoli's Meat. So every Wednesday, when I was supposed to go to church, I was in the club. Not, doing the thing in the club, but in a recorder. And on Fridays and Saturdays, I was at Mzoli's Meat, picking up weight, eating meat. But how I got to this PhD is through Christopher Stroud. But the other person was Adam Hout, my colleague there at the back there. I went to the library because I needed another focus on level 12. And there on level 12 was Adam Hout's thesis. He's the first person to write a thesis on hip-hop. And it completely I was stumped. I needed the additional language to develop a focus on multilingualism, and here comes Adam Hout, the first person to produce a thesis on hip-hop. This is me at his inaugural, so he's not doing duty today, so he's off the hook. So this is a picture. If you ever want to read his thesis, please go ahead. Adam's direction in his thesis pointed me to skip gates, signifying monkey, but also to bell hooks. So I get a proper dose of feminist literature, but also cultural studies. And that helped me to develop a social approach with Christopher Stroud to multilingualism. It was about, rethinking ideas about individual speakers and communities, like Bishop Blavers, like Heiderveld. And what do they do with language? What are the changing ideas of language being developed by those communities? But it also was thinking about there weren't any limited boundaries. Even though it is the Cape Flats, people were moving across the Cape Flats, going to different provinces and bringing different types of languages with them. Now, that understanding that we began to develop into this social approach to multilingualism also was about how individuals draw on different styles, accents, because you would have kids saying, "Give me a bottle of water," but never heard an American accent, only through WWE or Bold and the Beautiful and whatever else, right? But it was the linguistic repertoire that became central. So these bits of languages are formed and valued by individuals. Our colleague, Professor Solon Dias, did similar work and inspiring work in Westbank that really helped us to push the limits of our approach. But then we came to understand that, this approach is also about sets of languages, not individual languages that perform these functions. and that the resources that these historically marginalized speakers bring into communication is about the language aspect, the sound aspect, the sentence aspect, but also the meaning-making resources that they bring to communication. And we wanted to value that in publications. So our understanding was then that you can't just focus on multiple languages, separate languages, because what it does, it reduces our understanding of the speaker, but also how they weave together complex meaning-making practices. So Christopher said to me that my PhD thesis was complete by the third draft, by year 3, and then I was very angry when he told me afterwards, But he said, no, you needed to develop and to prepare yourself for producing your first book. So here in this book, myself developed this approach, social approach to multilingualism, but also focused on marginality. For us, marginality was extremely important to focus on because it led to understanding the heaviness that speakers from Bishop-Leyvers, from Heiderveld have to deal with in terms of the society, in terms of the economy, in terms of the politics. I'm fond of saying that no person can eat a language. The parents in Bishop-Leyvers, they don't care about language per se. They want to put food on the table. It's our job as linguists to help them understand the importance of language and how they should value it through our research. So a focus on marginality also helped us to understand that language was key to demonstrate how marginality was manufactured in our society. And here in this book, I also linked marginality to ideology, those false beliefs. Just because you don't speak pure Afrikaans doesn't mean you're less intelligent, for example. So voices of marginality, often when they are manufactured through processes of social hierarchies and distinctions. It's not found. It's not discovered. It's made. So the other idea developed in this book is that I tried to show that some languages were complete, were whole, are legitimized through structural description, in other words, through sentence grammatical analysis, through codification and standardization, and they are defined as languages in language policies as well. While others like Kaaps, for example, were the opposite. They were weak. They were always at the bottom of a language hierarchy. What I learned through the hip-hop artists, I didn't find amongst the linguists in my community. Very, very limited scholarship constrained us, and we had to look elsewhere, and we had to look into the community to teach us. And in this case, I'm very grateful to Adam and the hip-hop artists in the community for teaching us how to approach or develop a social approach to multilingualism. Chris's impact, I think, figures here importantly because he helped me understand that you start raising questions in your thinking about speaker agency and voice. Agency is your ability to bring about change, institutional change, and voice is your ability to make yourself heard. And when we thought about this very carefully and the way that we defined it, we approached multilingualism and language repertoires and the linguistic justice for historically marginalized speakers differently. So one of the key questions was that we always thought about what would it mean to think through a notion of linguistic citizenship for historically marginalized speakers. Now, I must say about Chris's mentorship, it's like reading late Plato dialogues, in the sense where Socrates talks for 15 minutes and then somebody shouts, "By Zeus, you're right, Socrates." That was basically Chris's Socratic method. But it worked, and he taught me how to read different styles. So whenever he reviewed a paper blind, I would immediately know who the author was. To this day, I can still do that. So I'm very grateful for him. But also, he advanced the notion of linguistic citizenship And I think where he started, he didn't intend maybe at the first, but I always reminded him this notion is for the historically marginalized speakers. Because what it does, it captures the way, or situations where speakers themselves exercise control over their language, deciding what a language is or are, and what they mean, and where language issues are discursively tied to a range of social issues, such as policy issues and questions of equity. Everywhere we studied these acts of linguistic citizenship, we would try to understand what the speakers were doing with language, so that we can build the theory from the speakers and not from top down. Here's a lovely picture of Chris. He insisted, so I apologize. If you're watching, Chris. Here's an example where we were thinking through very carefully about what is happening at universities at the time of the Fees Must Fall protests. But at the same time, we were thinking about what can we say about multilingualism? Is it really fixed? Are we truly multilingualism? Because the notion of utopia captures a not yet space, a not yet place. We haven't arrived there yet. And so one of the lines that you probably can see here reads that language is one of the most fundamental aspects of being human. And multilingualism, although commonly and broadly understood as referencing the coexistence and juxtapositions of more than one language, can also be seen as tied to the acts of the speaker. So here we try to link multilingualism back to the speaker, centralizing the importance of the speaker over and above just the numerical idea of multilingualism. And we did it through the analysis of comedy and performance. He would tell me to go and interview Nick Rabinovich, for example, comedians. We did it through the analysis of rap music. And we published together this and helped to advance it in these publications. We analyzed the importance and enduring nature of race, tied it to linguistic citizenship. Here you see a picture of Tactic, the white rapper on your left, and Ben 10, the colored rapper on the right, going back and forth in a freestyle rap performance. Ben 10 won the rap performance because he brought up race. But it showed that it was clearly important still to many of these speakers and the members of the communities. Myself, I went to Belleville Station. I don't recommend you doing this. And I studied Rastafarians. This is me taking a picture of the Rastafarian. It's 7:20 in the morning. And it's usually filled up, the subway. But what I understood there was that every drop of language and style or word or sound is picked up by Rastafarians. And what they do is they incorporate it within their linguistic repertoire and then just broadly use it to indicate that they are as multilingual as every person. Here, for example, the lady, the woman is bringing her son. He's going to prison tomorrow, and she wants to buy some herbs to ward off spirits. And the Rastafarian is going to put a prayer on it. And the next thing he says, which I found quite just utterly befuddled by it, he said, Rastafari, kadus kadas kabum gabas. I think that's the point where the multilingualism is pushed to its logical nonsense, I think. But he was quite serious, and she was nodding. He said, because she was peculiar, in a way. But at one point, I said to Chris, at one point, the focus needs to shift, because if linguistic citizenship is for the historically marginalized speaker is to be attained, there needs to be a shift towards linguistic justice and language activism. I couldn't find it in the community of social linguists. I found it in the community of hip-hop artists, through Afrikaaps, through Kaaps language activism. It gave us the language, it gave me the language, but it also gave me the theory to advance a social approach to multilingualism. And a few years ago, a bunch of my friends, Adam included, Emil with the big hair, at the bottom here, H. Sami Alim from Stanford, now at UCLA, we began the Heal the Hood Hip Hop Lecture Series. And this is us at the top with Grandmaster DJ Reddy D and his wife Malaika on the other end. We ran the Heal the Hood Lecture Series for a few years and then produced the book Never Again, which is obviously pulls from Nelson Mandela's phrase, never again. And it focuses on hip-hop art and activism and education in post-apartheid South Africa. It's the one book I'm very proud of because it only has 3 academics in it. Myself, Adam, and I think Sami, or somebody else who's an academic. But the rest are all hip-hop artists who were trained to write for the book. The lesson, I think the initial lesson that we got from there was, okay, we've produced a book that's probably nobody's going to read. It's going to be on the bookshelf. Because I saw these stats from HSRC Press the other day. They have 300 copies of our book. Is the book not selling? But I think it informed us about something that we needed to do something else. We needed to start seriously thinking about empowering Kaaps speakers. And one of the first steps we took, or the next steps rather, was to codify it. We said, okay, fine, if there's going to be respect, we have to set down the rules of the language. We have to produce a dictionary, maybe a grammar too. But then what we discovered was, there's something important about Kaaps, and it's the history. It's incomplete. Can we learn something from it if we go into history? Can we go dig in the archive, into the library where all the lies are buried? Good, you got that. I was thinking, yay, it gaat me there. So the first question is, what could we learn about the multilingualism of Kaaps speakers through early Kaaps, from the 1500s, 1600s, to 1700s, and the 1800s? Because but people define it as a variety of Afrikaans. Is it really a variety of Afrikaans? Well, it's important for us, we thought, to start maybe here. And this is Jan van Riebeeck's, from his diary, from his diary or collection of letters. In 1651, he writes to the Heren 17 that he wants to be the person to come to the Cape to colonize the land, the people, with the Dutch religion and the Dutch language. Now, it's written in 17th century Dutch, so you don't need to read the Dutch. But this is his thought, and he wanted to really come here. But of course, he had a terrible time. It was miserable. But the black indicates to you that the colonialists already had a sense of the linguistic repertoires of who they want to enslave. That it was a very limited understanding of linguistic repertoires. It was based on advancing colonial languages. And when you read the history of early Kaaps and you try to get a sense of stitch it together, you come to figures like the little girl named Ava. Now, most of you don't know Ava. You should know her by a name, Kratoa. And Kratoa was the translator, and she was the figure that connected her own community to the colonialists. But here, Jan van Riebeeck, he was very observant, because this is from his diary. He writes from his diary this observation of Kratoa. And he also, in his diary, makes observations about the linguistic repertoire of Kratoa. Oh, she speaks good Dutch. Her Dutch is very, very good. But Kratoa spoke Low and High Portuguese and Dutch. Yes, he's talking about complaining about Duman, who's lying, and Jan van Riebeeck uses the word Subat. Subat is not an Afrikaans word, it's not a Dutch word. It's an old Indonesian word, and it refers to originally a jacket. It's extremely fascinating findings that we started to dig up, because we were told that there's nothing to see here, which we found in 1 week in the archive. Quite a lot to see there. It's very interesting when you study early Kaaps and you move from the 1600s to the 1700s. Abu Bakr Effendi arrives in the 1800s. Abu Bakr Effendi is acclaimed for writing phonetic Afrikaans in Arabic script. That's pretty much it. But if you dig and you look further, Effendi tried to make sense of the Cape Dutch being spoken in Kaap by the Muslims. Now, when he came here, he didn't understand it properly. And I always think about this. If he had arrived maybe just 5 years earlier, he would have heard the term Kaaps being used all around the Cape. Because what he wrote down, especially in introducing his instructions on Islamic rituals, is in Bayan al-Din, looks awfully familiar when you read it. Any Kaap speaker will be able to understand some of the words being written here. This is from his Cape Dutch introduction to the Bayan al-Din. When we discovered this, we thought, wow, what Kaap speaker used the word viti? Ek viti. Even though there are some anomalies, not anomalies, but old distinctions in the sounds, what he tried to write down was exactly what those speakers were saying in the Kaap. So it already existed in the early 1800s, way before Afrikaans received its label. It was heard in the streets. This straatpraatjes is well documented to represent the linguistic repertoires of early Kaap speakers. And then, of course, arriving and digging through these archives, in 1844, there was a debate about whether the Afrikaners were speaking Boere Kaaps. It gives you an indication that everybody was speaking Kaaps. It was all around. So if you dig in the archive, the definition of Kaaps that we come to is the following. It's an African language formed out of a slave lingua franca, but it was first used by the indentured indigenous and the enslaved populations at the Cape. Its linguistic structure, the sound system, word formation, syntactic structure, and meaning-making character was historically formed by the Cape Dutch language used, mixed in with phonological, lexical variations from Arabic, Low and High Portuguese, Bahasa Malay, Bahasa means language, and Khoi and San languages in the periods 1600s to 1700s. There's a very close link to the words awefe, to give good health, and the word we, which leads you to the word awe. There is that influence. And of course we know that it was later influenced by English and then Standard Afrikaans and gradually marginalized. That's what we learned from the historical archives, and we are still learning a lot. Over the last few years, it's been mentioned, and I think Adam will agree, it has upended our lives. We are happy to come at the end of it. We've learned a lot about the codification process of Kaaps. And I'm very grateful for all the compilers who were part of it. I've mentioned their names before. That's fine, don't worry. The important part that we've learned from the dictionary is that Kaaps is extremely complex. I was saying on the radio, RSG, the other day, we were working or setting down the definition for our way, and then youngster CPT comes out with a song, our way, with a question mark in between. We can't deal with that. It just complicates lives. And, Ashwin Arendse writing in his thesis project, Popaisi, Pinka Manka Pinka Ponke. How do you just transcribe that, right? Write it down. But we also understood that where others were focused only on nouns and verbs, we were interested in how the words that actually glue together the sentence structure of Kaaps could teach us about how we should describe Kaaps. Because the ladies op die school wants to know how to write in Kaaps. Because they can't understand why am I being marked down when I write uni. I know it's undi, so the teachers here, they know what I'm talking about. So that was the main thrust of the dictionary project, to help the kids in school perform better academically. We understand that our efforts has raised the prestige, and there's been significant corpus development. I'm looking forward to reading the Bible in Kaaps that is currently being translated by the Pinkster Church Group. So yes, you can clap for them. Yes. And we've also been asked to develop spell checkers, populate Wikipedia pages, translation models, develop that. That takes money. But we've made advances with the dictionary because it has been asked, where's the dictionary? Folks have been asking, where's the grammar guide? Can you teach us how to write? What are the rules? Bilingual learning materials have been developed by my colleague, Dr. Robin Tyler, together with a large group of teachers and writers. But, what about higher education? What about university? What about scientific scholarship? I remember when we first started the dictionary, they said there's no scholarship on Kaaps. And then I said, hold my beer. There's a lot now, a lot. And we want to do far more. So I'm grateful to the Kaaps Dictionary Editorial Board, to the members, the managing editors, Hilda Hood, Adam was there as well. Adam is always there. To Cerilyn Kibiru, Tanzwell, Emil, Sakil, Tyron, Robin, Pejamaru, Tara Lee, Carla, I see you there somewhere. And then also Geraya Fredericks. Where's Geraya? Not here? I just want to say a very interesting fact about Geraya. I was the Adam Small lecturer, and Geraya stood up and asked me a question, and then afterwards kept my attention for more than 20 minutes. And I think after that, I was sold on, what she could bring to the project. Tanzwell created this beautiful cover, and the cover speaks about the journey of Kaaps. And by the way, Rector, I had to feed the kids on this project all the time, So you'll see a lot of pictures of food in it. If you look at the front bottom part, the dictionary cover has what they look like, Muslim figures. They are the Mardika ancestors of Kaaps who came here in the 1600s. And of course, there's a block of flats with discs on it, DSTV discs. It's trilingual, and you can read it from left to right, but not from right to left. So we are giving you access to Kaaps. We don't need access to the other languages because we know it. It's in our repertoire. But what about the grammar? This is the cover of the grammar that will come out next year. We are planning and working hard on it. One of the studies that we reviewed indicated that the learners at school want to be taught how to read in Kaaps, but also how to write in Kaaps. So we hope to provide this resource to teachers and everybody who wants to know how to write in Kaaps. I'm grateful to everybody who is focusing on including Kaaps at the basic education level, but also at the higher education institutional level. And what we always emphasized was that in order to finally break the stereotypical view or the numerical view of multilingualism of Kaaps speakers, one has to really focus on ways of including speakers, such speakers, in these what we call controlling domains, because that's where language is controlled. So in the educational context, we started out, and I think Robin will agree, we had 3 projects called Oorsetal, which was very controversial, Oorstel op. Nee, it's just like, I'm not going to show any fingers, but you know what I mean. But then we've landed on Oorsel Science, and I'm extremely grateful to Robin for spearheading this project, because currently it's being tested out in a grade 6 classroom with permission from parents. It's downloadable from online, and it's bilingual. So what it brings to the classroom is exactly the sort of social approach to multilingualism and bilingualism that we have been advocating. And it, in real time, allows you to see the acts of linguistic citizenship taking place. So we hope that the marks will improve, and these are some of the teachers working there, and some of them will identify themselves or see themselves. That's at the basic education level, and we need to do more. But what about higher education? UCT has revised its language policy, and amongst isiXhosa, Afrikaans, and English, what do you see? Kaaps. So UCT here is a bellwether for advancing not only official languages in this province, but also in recognizing, actually implementing linguistic justice for the historically marginalized speakers. And I think it's a moment for Kaaps speakers. Maybe they don't know about it, and they need to be taught about this revised language policy. But hopefully one day when the speakers of Kaaps go to UCT, visit UCT, there will be signage in Kaaps. There will be curriculum materials in Kaaps. It can be done because we have the expertise. So this is an especially proud moment for us in this short space of time. UWC is applying its mind. Sorry, Rector. Okay, for a long time we talked about this, and at symposia, and we thought that oftentimes as academics we produce particular knowledge that maybe asks the wrong questions about speakers, about their language, about their multilingualism. And we thought long and hard about this, that in order to chart alternative forms of knowledge about multilingualism, and not just a social approach to multilingualism, maybe we should set up a society that will take care of developing or advancing that knowledge. This is where the Society for the Advancement of Kaaps comes in. And I want to thank the executive members, especially my co-chair person, Theo Rodriguez. We talk on the phone every day, how to advance Kaaps through scientific scholarship, but to also all the members here. There's Adam again. Adam is everywhere. But we also are producing our own journal. And notice how we spell journal. I think it's really nice. I think it's an accurate expression of it. We have our first special issue currently under review, and we are planning our second issue. And what we are focusing on here is not only Kaaps only, but also other minoritized languages, other historically marginalized languages. Because I think it's important for us to sustain scholarship that really captures the lived experiences, lived multilingual experiences of our speakers. Okay, before I lose my voice. I think through this academic journey, it's been a really confronting couple of days, especially when I heard the amount of people attending. I thought, who's going to pay for all the food? But I think my students have always challenged me to think about, language and multilingualism differently. I'm always thinking to myself that, I've probably the smartest students who's thinking up either the craziest things or the smartest things, and I'm not capturing it because maybe it's too abstract. And sometimes I think maybe I should have thought about that, and then just help them to think about it further. So I'm really grateful for you who are here, for those of you watching online, my students. Thank you for challenging me to become a better teacher as well, a better lecturer, and a better researcher. My colleagues in the linguistics department, they've always been one of the, we are in the best department, I'm sorry to say this, in the country, so, there's no way, you can doubt that. And I've always had sort of experienced the collegiality of it, and I'm very grateful. My colleagues in the CMDR, which is on this side, I always tell them that they're probably a bunch of neo-Marxists that I'm working with because they're radical thinking. Every day, it's a struggle, but I'm very grateful to struggle with them, thinking about multilingualism. And so I'm very grateful to have a job, first of all. But to also come into the university, because this university, was once a complicated place. It was built to discipline colored people initially. And the reason why it's so cold sometimes here, because it was a farm, sometimes you cannot think about multilingualism without escaping the fact that it's on the Cape Flats. So how can you not think about the historically marginalized? Because it's everywhere. It's literally around you. So I'm very grateful for my colleagues, and tomorrow when I come back to work, so please, Elrika, I want a third cup of coffee. It usually stops me at 2. I thank my extended family who's always accepted me, my cousins. They've always given me the love, always given me the distance, never bothered me, and that always bothered me. But I'm very grateful to them, and we've grown closer, this time. My family-in-law accepted me when I married my wife, on day one. When I proposed, my father-in-law said, "Wag, die man praat." That was the end of that. My brother-in-law also and sister-in-law for accepting me and into the family. I think my family, growing up in Leyvers, my brothers especially, we have a huge respect for each other. And I think that respect has sustained us throughout my academic journey. And so I'm extremely grateful to them for just being there and always sort of just checking up on me. I might not do the same because I'm too busy sometimes, but I do say sorry sometimes. In my mother, this woman, Manalyn, just bringing up 4 kids, four boys. It's, wat gedoen word, My mother used to wake up at 4:30 in the morning, and I think to myself, I'm going to go back to sleep. And then I had to do it. And I thought, sure, now I understand the value of work. And I've always taken that with me. So all the time, coming to the office early, sometimes leaving late, I used to work very hard because I used to think that I didn't have a choice in the matter. But I think my mother taught me the value of work. Say, look, if you work hard, you're going to achieve, what you want to have in life. So I really appreciate that, a lot. My wife, my wife, she's also just a superstar. I must actually watch what I say. Watch what I say. I'm very proud of her because, when when I did my PhD, she supported me throughout the journey. And then when I was done and I was appointed here for the first time on permanent basis, I said, okay, now we are going to focus on you. She graduated with her PGCE and honors at the same time in 2018. Yes. And in 2 weeks' time, she's going to graduate her master's cum laude. Yeah. Master William, thank you for enriching our lives. He's just a bundle of joy, and here he is playing with the big kids because he refuses to go to the small kids at the creche. And he's always in my study. Here he's pulling down Jan van Riebeeck's diaries. Thank you very much.
So, Prof. Williams, this is just a very small recognition of the big things you have done for our faculty and for our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Wow. Prof, I know you think you are done, but I still have a question for you. Some of us have a hard time, and we need someone like you to help students understand that not all of us come from Model C schools. So we avoid words like SHEET because we confuse them with the other one. We also don't talk about sheep because we don't know whether we're talking about the one that goes in the ocean or the one that eats grass. We also confuse those little things that fly and the thing that you lie on. So we still confuse those vowels. Some of us don't have the long vowels and the many accented vowels that you find in English. So you need to look for a student to start doing that and empowering some of us, like you have done. I'm not going to thank you. Someone else will do. But I'm here to ask our head of department of the linguistics department to come and respond to you. Prof. Amina Peg.
Good evening, everyone. It will be like Prof. Williams to ask me to give my respondent talk after his, which was just amazing. And I feel like anybody could come up here and just spend some time letting him know what an amazing job he's done. But I'm the lucky one. So I'm going to start with a message from Professor Christopher Stroud, who couldn't be here today. He says, "Dear Quentin," so this is to you. I will be looking at you, but I won't make it weird. Okay. A short note of congratulations from me on what I'm absolutely certain was nothing less than a stellar inaugural lecture. Certainly stimulating and thought-provoking, definitely entertaining, and undoubtedly a precise professional performance in your characteristic style. I'm sorry that for health reasons, I'm not able to be there and celebrate with you. In fact, not just sorry, but very, very disappointed. We have come a long way together in the short time we have known each other. You were my first PhD scholar at the University of the Western Cape, and very much on your initiative, together we gave a new life to the notion of linguistic citizenship that had lain fallow for a decade or more. My engagements with you in my capacity as your PhD supervisor were enormously rewarding for me, as much as they were physically challenging, even exhausting, on the occasions I shared moments with you in your field site of Mzoli's Meat in Gugulethu. Our work on co-authored publications in the years after your PhD were a joy. In recent years, you have taken the notion of linguistic citizenship on another trajectory with your important work on Kaaps, work that has some potentially far-reaching implications for not just academic thinking on multilingualism, but also perhaps just as importantly, if not more so, for policy and education direction. These are exciting times. Again, congratulations from me, and looking forward to engaging further with your work. Best wishes, Chris. Thank you, Chris. So now I shall begin. I expect tears. Okay. So it is with great pleasure that I serve as respondent to Prof. Williams' inaugural address as full professor, as he serves in the linguistics department, as well as the director for the Center for Multilingualism and Diversities Research. I hope everyone will agree that achievements and exceptional milestones, such as this one, holds greater significance when shared with the many people who ultimately shape and improve our lives. I'm going to talk about things that don't often get spoken about in academia: gratitude, presence, reflection, and authenticity. So bear with me if this makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable. That's also part of growth. It's a good thing. So today I stand here across from Prof. Williams, who, by the way, was my peer facilitator. And for those who don't know what that means, Quentin advised me on my subjects in my first year. He was my more knowledgeable peer. And that really hasn't changed much in the past 21 years. As Cicero said, gratitude is the mother of all virtues, and while we have Quentin stuck in that chair, I would like to take a moment to express my own gratitude for your work and just to know you. Gratitude is needed today because tomorrow is not guaranteed. In this response, I will endeavor to express what many of you here would dearly wish to say to Quentin. Let me begin by saying that I will no doubt switch between different terms of address. Sometimes I will refer to you as Professor Williams. This is his full title, as we know. At other times, he is called Prof. Q by his many postgraduate students. You can give him a round of applause to show that you're here. Oh, gosh. There we go, okay. Then there's also Quentin and Q. These shifts in address relate to the many hats that Quentin has. He is, as he said, an activist, but also an internationally C1-rated researcher, invested colleague, wonderful supervisor, sincere friend, and mentor. I would like to add to this list, and he may disagree with the last one, but I believe he's also a leader with a servant's heart. In speaking with him, one of the things that was very profound that he said about his son, Master William, was that, and it settled on my soul, so it's worth repeating. He said, "There is more to life than finishing the next sentence." I have a feeling that your son has made you and your incredible wife, V, more present than ever, and this is what I want us all to do just for a moment. Just for a moment, transcend the shackles that apartheid has placed on our perception of who and what we are. We do indeed live in a country which has the largest gap between extreme wealth and extreme poverty. And this won't change for 1, 2, maybe 3 generations. But something that can change in a blink of an eye is our attitude to the cards we have been dealt. Prof. Williams began as a Kaalfoot laity in Lewis. Many people would surmise that his future was already written. But as we can plainly see today, hard work, razor focus, and an indomitable vision can drastically reconfigure one's future. I hope all the students and everyone listening and watching online, I hope that settles on your soul. I'm also immensely happy that your mother played a pivotal role in shaping who you are, and that you took the time to acknowledge that here. Prof. Q has committed his life to addressing the historical problem of complete and utter disregard to the representation of marginalized people. People who live on the periphery of our nation and are deemed less than because of their race, their locale, and their linguistic background. Marginalized people did not have the luxury to act in their own interests. In fact, they were not even in spaces where impact could be made. This reminds me of the African proverb, until the lion learns to write, every story will glorify the hunter. Not to dehumanize ourselves here, but it would not be far-fetched to say that Q is a lion that has learned to write. In fact, he is at the forefront of codifying the arguably oldest variety of Afrikaans, Kaaps. Think about that for a second. Thank you. The work that Quentin is doing is critically important as marginalized people are characteristically represented by other voices, colonial powers, and so-called experts on lives they have never lived. Karl Marx, the German philosopher, had this to say about the Orient, another marginalized group, and one that is even until today still suffering under what Edward Said calls a punishing destiny. Of course, I am talking about the still oppressed people of occupied Palestine. Karl Marx stated that sie können sich nicht selbst vertreten, sie müssen vertreten werden. In English, they cannot represent themselves, they must be represented. Or put even more succinctly, hulle kan nie vir hulself praat nie, jy moet vir hulle represent. The superiority complex that leaks from racist powers has unfortunately been sucked into our pores, resulting in many of us believing that we cannot stand for ourselves, and that our words have less meaning, and that we are somehow less than. Evidence of this linguistic injustice is visible in the pitting of pure Afrikaans with Kombuis Afrikaans, intussen taal, or even Gamtaal. Through Q's work, we see a rewriting of what it means to be a Kaaps speaker and to seek out linguistic social injustice. So that is the rehumanization project. While we can praise Quentin for his vision and output, I think we can all agree, it is just as important to look at the steps he took to provide us with this work. What happens to an individual in the process of becoming someone who brings books and dictionaries that changes the way we navigate the world? The process behind the academic is often hidden from public eye. The long nights, the rejections, the fights with publishers, the patience with contributors, and the many community talks and activities. In 60 minutes, Q has given us the highlights and shielded us from the immense effort, planning, and sacrifice it takes to make visible what has only been a hope and dream. What Q has shown us is the power and the necessity of what Parker calls the undivided life. A professor from Lewis, a director and doting husband and dad, a supervisor and lifelong learner, a researcher and an activist. This is the apogee of academic life, to have your research inform your teaching and your teaching inform your research. I remember hearing about Hildehood many, many years ago when Q and I didn't have gray hair. And it warms my heart to see that the seed that he and others have planted is now yielding fruit and providing shade for many. When Q talks about his excitement as a young PhD student, deciding to fuse hip-hop and Kaaps and consider the role that gender plays in the construction of identity, he is talking about his first step in the process of becoming, the process of creating an academic space where he can make his mark and belong authentically. If we hold on to the importance of authenticity in academic research, with authenticity defined as having an undisputed origin and not a copy, a genuine artifact, we can see authenticity play out in the theory of linguistic citizenship. Quentin defines this Southern theory, conceptualized by Professor Chris Stroud, as a situation where speakers themselves exercise control over their languages, deciding what languages are and what they mean. In later works, we see linguistic citizenship as an even more fluid framework to understand how people connect across difference. This theory is revolutionary in the way that it connects us on a human basis. Stroud in Pendukana 2021 talks about how we can touch others differently using an alternative register of emotionality, not anger, but love and compassion. How many of us were touched by Q's presentation tonight? How many of us felt included, like we belonged? Here we see citizenship, in linguistic citizenship, indexing belonging. And once we belong, how many of us will be stirred to action? This is Professor Williams' inaugural speech as a full professor, but it is also the beginning of a new understanding of who we are and what each of us can do to make this fractured, flawed, and beautiful nation a better place. Q, this is not your struggle. This is our struggle. And I thank you for being the fearless leader in the never-ending challenge of becoming more ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Peck. I am sure by the end of today, I don't have to do any more walking. My steps have added up. And now I would like to invite our colleague, the Deputy Dean of Research and Postgraduate Studies, to come and give a vote of thanks.
Thanks, Prof. Mantua. Is die leiwersmense nie gehoor? Hulle is 'n bietjie stil vanaand. Nou, julle kan maar 'n bietjie amen sê ook. Ja. Good evening, everyone. I have the honor of offering the formal vote of thanks. But before I do so in the expected manner, allow me to pause on what this moment represents for just a minute. An inaugural lecture is never only a personal milestone, it is also a public act of codifying scholarly labor and of affirming the dignity of knowledge born from struggle. In the case of Professor Quentin Williams, this recognition carries an additional weight. It is a moment of linguistic justice. To codify a language is not merely to systematize its vocabulary or grammar. It is to give that language its due, to honor its speakers, and to insist on its rightful place in the academy and in society. For that reason, in thanking Professor Williams tonight, I choose to do so in Kaaps. As historian and anti-apartheid activist Patrick Tariq Millet reminds us, restorative justice begins with restorative memory. For those of us whom apartheid named colored, but whom scholars like Millet and Aussie June Bam have reclaimed as Kamisa African, speaking Kaaps is itself an act of remembrance and of resistance. So let me say, with all the melodic rhythms and embodied wisdom of the Cape Flats, na een ding is een ding. Ons is Kamisa Africans, ons is. Prof Quentin Williams, sy het dit, sy is gebore met dit, sy is op dit, sy is gevaarlik kwaai, en ons sien vir jou. Dankie vir die inaugural lecture, baie termakassie vir jou. And allow me to echo the sound and celebration that rises from our communities when honor is in fact due. Some of you might know this, others, welcome to the party. Ek sien vir Prof Quentin Williams, hy is nou 'n volle professor. En ons sê, hoia, hoia, hoia. En ons sê, hoia, hoia, hoia. In translation, unfortunately, we're going to be at loss, so I'm not even going to try. I'm going to leave it there. What we witnessed this evening is the embodiment of what Professor Williams himself has called linguistic citizenship. The right of speakers to exercise ownership over their language and to resist the hierarchies that have long devalued it. From Bishop Lavers to the University of the Western Cape, his journey testifies to the fact that excellence and innovation, linguistic justice and research distinction can and do emerge from the Cape Flats. Now, I'm a Mitchells Plain boy myself, and growing up, ons gevra, can anything good come from the Cape Flats? And this evening, we want to assuredly say, Professor Williams, given your own life academic journey, most assuredly, good excellence can come from the Cape Flats. Ek wil amper gesê het van die lywes tot binne in die IWK. Finally, let me extend our thanks to those who made tonight possible. Our rector, Professor Balfour, for his words of welcome. Our registrar, Dr. Nitin Lawton Misra. Our DVC Student Development and Support, Prof. Madiba. Ambassador Mark. For the introduction, Professor Fiona Muller, our Dean, Professor Amina Peck for the response, thank you. Who else am I saying here? Our Program Director, Prof. Motanyani, thank you, Prof. Our Faculty Manager, somewhere in the back there, Dr. McWatts, and her team, without whom this evening could not be a success. Oh, they're standing in the back there, hi. Thank you, Dr. McWatts. To the friends and the family of Professor Williams, I think I was honored earlier to allow Prof. Williams' mom to pass me by, and I want to honor you tonight as well. Baie dankie vir alles wat u gedoen het. This is as much about you as it is about Prof. Williams this evening, and so we want to honor you as well. Thank you for everything. And then finally, Professor Williams, Quentin, Q, hulle het amper gedink jy gaan rap, maar dit is gekom nie. For reminding us that to honor Kaaps is to honor ourselves. And then I was going to end off with saying something, but I'm going to leave it for now. I'll end it on that. Finally, colleagues, everyone joined here this evening. You were invited to join Professor Williams and family for some refreshments and some food in the foyer. Before we exit, however, the academic procession will arise. You may do so now. There's going to be some music playing as they exit. After they have formally exited the building, you are also welcome to join for refreshments, for photographs, and to enjoy the evening further, right? The music will come shortly, colleagues. Baie dankie.